Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And with this one, I wanted to bring you my 9.1.5 competitive 3v3 PvP tier list for the healers. So these are the healers that I think are the most likely to be able to push to the upper levels of the ladder. And mostly if you're an S tier, it means that you have the least amount of weaknesses. That was about the only way that I could really find a distinct way to measure the differences between some of these healers. It was actually such a close race. Even after the results of the most recent AWC, we could see that the healers were a lot more evenly balanced than they were previously in Shadowlands, and they continue to become more balanced moving forward as I see more of them popping up, even though some of them may be less popular. So let's just go ahead and start the tier list off here. We've got the Disciplined Priest. This is a healer that focuses on aggression. It does damage to heal through atonement. It is a very fun healing specialization. It's probably still my number one go-to when I'm looking for like a really fun time as a healer, especially if you're somebody who maybe wants to pick up healing, but you like doing damage and you don't want to give up that feeling of kind of pumping out a ton of pressure. You can still get that with a Disciplined Priest, but also find groups a little bit easier. But because of it having such a distinct strength, it also comes with a very big drawback, which is its mana and its ability to kind of stand for long engagements. And because of this, I think it holds it back from being on the S tier. Also, its versatility. So it's not a healer that you're going to really play with every other spec in the game. The best compositions for it are Rogue Mage Priest and Feral Hunter Priest. But even those compositions, you're competing with your other spec, the Holy Priest. So I think that you're held back on versatility and you're held back on your mana and your ability to kind of withhold or be able to withstand longer engagements. But you are a bit tankier than Holy, which does give you a little bit more of an advantage. Holy, that would be Holy Priest's major weakness. But for me at the moment, I think I can feel comfortable putting Disciplined Priest onto the A tier. Phenomenal healer, great performer. In my mind, this is kind of where you would want a healer to be. It's got this really cool, awesome strength, and a very mirrored weakness or drawback that you need to play around and fit yourself into certain compositions and niches to be able to perform. So I actually do really like where Disciplined Priest has landed. I think that you'll still have a good time with it. I think if you're on S tier, it means that there's probably just one thing that's kind of holding you into the bonkers level at the moment. Now, Holy Paladin is still doing really well competitively in tournaments for those that have really been dedicated to it. But a lot of people that re-rolled to Paladin to compete have re-rolled back away from it. And that is because you run out of mana faster than Disciplined Priest. You run out of mana so fast. You are in the shortest battery ever comparatively to the Disciplined Priest. What you really add is damage. I'm seeing a lot of Holy Paladins now shifting towards Necro Lord. This might continue as a trend into patch 9.2 with the set bonuses also catering more into the Vanquisher's Hammer's bonuses, and it may just become a healer that's all about doing damage. It's much like the Disciplined Priest, but your ability to avoid crowd control is a lot more limited because you need to get maybe a little bit closer to the engagement, and because of this, you don't have Shadow or Death, you don't have the Holy Ward, you can't shapeshift, so you're a lot more susceptible to crowd control, and your mana is weaker, so this is already taking you 2 steps down. But I would say that your flexibility and your versatility is a little bit higher. Generally, you're playing with mages, but you can slot in the Windwalkers in that slot. You can slot in warriors. You can slot in rogues. You can play with a lot of more variety in my mind than a Disciplined Priest, but still you're going to have a shorter leash in terms of longevity in a fight, and you're really going to struggle to avoid crowd control. So for me, I think it gets held back here onto the B tier at the moment. This may change again in 9.2, but at the moment, I feel confident putting there. It's not to say that this isn't a healer that's going to be getting rank 1, though. I think that it still is going to. Again, the Windwalker Fire Mage Holy Paladin is still such a powerful composition that you can... If you want to master that one, you're still going to go the distance with it. But if you're really looking at it as a standalone healer, I think that it's clear that it's the weaknesses that it have are going to hold it back to the rest of the healers currently. Now, Holy Priest, slight mana problems, but I wouldn't say nearly as bad as Holy Paladin or Disciplined Priest. Its major weakness is getting attacked by melee cleaves, so just kind of getting rushed down and run down. That is going to be the one point that kind of holds it back from being onto the S tier. If it wasn't like that, if it was sturdy and bolstered, then I would say that it is an S tier healer. It is a lot more flexible. You can run the spell cleaves because you're not going to run out of mana. You provide the range stun. You can run the rogue mage priest. You can run the jungle. So you're very flexible and versatile. Great healer to pick up right now. If you are looking to pick up a healer or maybe switch around what healing spec you're playing at the moment, highly competitive. Major drawback is getting tunneled. So if you panic when you're getting attacked, maybe it's not the best healer to pick up. Because of that, I think it gets held down from the S tier, but I would rank it as one of the best A tier healers at the moment. Now, Mistweaver Monk, this is one that's kind of been under hot debate for a while now. Like, is it just kind of trash? Where is Mistweaver Monk going to be going here? Still, to me, I think that it's lacking a layer of identity that it used to have with things like Way of the Crane, where it could get in and start punching people and be aggressive in that sense. The Eminence Healing Legendary is really not delivering on that type of performance at the moment and not really adding that extra layer. And because of that, you kind of struggle to have this kind of niche place where you're the best healer to have in that situation. You can be very powerful because you almost never run out of mana and very powerful into spell cleaves. You start to struggle when enemies can start to get on top of you, especially the rogue mage. It's always been kind of a tough one for Mistweaver, even being able to port while stunned now. And there were a lot of improvements to the weaknesses of Mistweaver, but you're still getting held back. Right now, my biggest debate is whether or not to put it on B or C. I think because of the strength of basically infinite mana, it would take a lot to run out of mana. I think Mistweaver might be the most mana retentive spec at the moment for a healer. And if you're able to just sit in the back and heal, you have the highest raw output in the game. But unfortunately, it's all about crowd control and burst damage, which means that your high output will be reduced to 0 when you want it to be at its highest, just long enough that the target that you want to heal is going to die. So you don't really deal well with the current meta. If that ever shifts to where it's a throughput meta, Mistweaver is going up to the S tier. Having infinite mana, infinite throughput is like, that's going to be the number one. But right now the meta just doesn't fit to that strength. And because you don't have that extra layer to form like a niche where the Mistweaver is the best pick, I think it falls short of wholly. At the moment, I'm seeing Mistweaver playing Warrior Mage. It's playing Frost Mage Demo. But even in those positions, it's usually better to have a Druid or a Holy Priest. It does bring in the Paralyze, so it can instantly crowd control one target of the enemy team, and that's why it works in those compositions, is because everyone in that team is picking a target to control, and they're all able to do it with basically unpreventable measures, and you're able to run a team down with those unpreventable measures, which is allowing it to compete. And I think that's what holds it up from going down into the D tier, up right now into the B tier. Now we're looking at Resto Druid. I think right now Resto Druid is going to be the best healer on average, even though it actually didn't win any of the recent tournaments. I think that Resto Druid is the most durable healer. It is the best healer to deal with anything when you are being personally attacked. It's a great healer for single target output. You can generally avoid casting, which means that you can't be susceptible to being interrupted because you have access to stealth. You can deal with one of the weaknesses, which may be running out of mana. But with the legendary right now that everyone is running, the Verdant Infusion, your ability to extend your heal over time effects means that you're not spending mana reapplying them, and you can just kind of like, oh, that guy's fully hotted, I'm on vacation over here. And yeah, that's kind of what ends up happening with Resto Druid. And I think that's what's putting it into the bonkers level, is the ability to just extend your hots for such a dramatic amount of time that you can just leave the fight, go into stealth, and you know that target isn't going to be dying. So that's, to me, one of the main things that puts it up there at the moment. And because it has ways to correct its weaknesses, like going into stealth to be able to drink, means that it doesn't really have any, and it falls into the S tier at the moment. Now for Restoration Shaman, again, its problem is more or less throughput. This is a healer that if you're not ready for it, you might be panicked picking it up. It can be very aggressive, especially if you want to run the Earthquake Elemental Legendary, where you send out an Earthquake Rock Elemental that's going to be doing a tremendous amount of damage, and you want to get aggressive with Flame Shock and Lava Burst and add a lot of damage and be super aggro and try and just bowl the enemy team over. You can do that. I've seen a lot of teams running the Demon Hunter Warrior, and now actually a lot more Boomkin Demon Hunter, as well as Windwalker. Boomkin seems to be the Boomkin healer at the moment, although you can slot it out for a Resto Druid, which again is why I think Resto Druid goes up onto the S tier. Your mana is going to be very solid, much better than any of the other A tier or B tier healers, or aside from Mistweaver. I think Mistweaver would take the award for mana. But you can sometimes get overwhelmed by the amount of damage, and a lot of your cooldowns, you're going to be like, wait, did that actually do anything? You're going to put like an Earthen Wall Totem down and think like, oh, you're fine. No, okay, no, you're not. And it's mostly because the crit threshold at the moment, like people are critting for 30k, and Earthen Wall Totem doesn't really reduce damage to spells that are that high in terms of crit value. So Earthen Wall Totem has lost a lot of value. That was one of your major defensives. Can also get a bit frustrating because of having to position your totems on the ground, although at the same time, that to me is kind of what mechanically identifies and gives a niche to Shaman, is having these like positional requirements of their defensive cooldowns. I think it actually is what makes it cool and unique, although it is a bit of a weakness. The advantages of those totems should then kind of shore that up to be a strength and as well as a weakness. But for me, I think Resto Shaman is probably coming in about middle of the pack on the A tier because of those comps that I've listed before, kind of coming up on the rise, but still it may be a healer that I think it's a really tough healer to play in 3v3. Especially to be able to keep up with the cooldown trading, because your cooldowns don't feel that valuable, and keep up with the throughput because you're going to cast a lot. And because of that, you're going to be always open to all of these attacks. So this is like a very high intensity healer in my mind if you want to pick it up. Although if you run with things like Rep Paladins, they're going to reduce that pressure a lot because they're going to pick up a lot of the slack for you on the healing. But if you're running with non-instant cast healing hybrids, then things get really stressful as a Restoration Shaman. But this is my ranking. We got Druid coming in at number 1. Again, I think it's that legendary that's putting it up into the bonkers level. Holy Priest, I'd say, is the number 2 healer with the jungle and the rogue mage and the instant crowd control. Makes it for a phenomenal healer. You can run some wizard cleaves as well. Resto Shaman, a little bit more aggressive, less stable, more unstable. And I think that's one of the main reasons that it gets held back behind Holy Priest. Disc Priest, again, also a bit unstable, but because it has Rogue Mage and has Jungle, it's competing directly with Holy. Which one's better? It's going to be a hot debate for a while. Holy Paladin, really aggressive healer, but has this major weaknesses like Discipline Priest, if not exaggerated even further, which hold it back. And then finally Mistweaver, which is slowly making its way up there. Again, having the instant paralyze allows it to get a lot of these good 3-2-1 setups and then burst on a target type of compositions. But the strengths that it has do not complement what is required to be able to win a game right now competitively, which is what I think holds it back ultimately as a healer. But other than that, I hope that you enjoyed the tier list. If you did, make sure you thumbs up the video and make sure you hit the subscribe button. I do my best to upload patch changes and news updates to World of Warcraft to enhance your experience. So if you'd like to make sure that you're always in the know and the now with World of Warcraft, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. Other than that, I'm streaming every day at twitch.tv/Supatease at 11 a.m. PST. We're doing a lot of viewer games, grinding a bit of honor. So if you want some help getting some rating, want to grind a little bit of honor, or just want somebody to play with, then come hang out there. And other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.